of the Eastern Caribbean, an auspicious occasion here for Grenada, Carriacou, and Pidi Martinique. The rest of the OECS and the entire Caribbean region. Indeed, a historic moment, auspicious occasion here for Grenada. We are live at the Grenada Trade Center, where there is the official opening of the first session of the 10th Grenada Parliament. And this comes on the basis of general elections which went by on March 13. We are bringing you live coverage here from the Trade Center. My name is Selwyn Noel, and in my company is the great Sherma Wells, and no stranger to the microphones. Pleasant morning, Sherma.
Morning, Cello. What a description. Great. It is always a pleasure to witness this occasion, and this one being even extraordinary, Cello, when we look at the history of our parliament. I think it would be on the second occasion we have this sitting bringing 15 members of one team into the houses. And this is amazing because according to the record that is out there, it has never happened before in the history of Grenada. So looking at it from that perspective, it is indeed a historical day today for Grenada.
A back-to-back occasion, and for those of you who are joining us, we are live at the Trade Center once again. It's a pleasant morning, somewhat bright and sunny on the outside, and we are awaiting the start of the proceedings. First of all, we would have the Governor General arriving, the members of Parliament. They are about taking their seats, and it's going to be a packed audience as usual. And the fanfare of the occasion usually arouses this kind of excitement where the supporters of the various entities will be here. Curious onlookers nonetheless. Yes, it's already packed the capacity. Somewhere there about at least 350 to 380 patrons here at the Trade Center. We see some beautiful ladies. They're all cladded in blue and black, and I was told that they are the culinary arts students in St. Andrew Southwest. That's the constituency of Honorable Yolan Bain Hosford. We await the arrival of the Governor General. She is going to be here to take charge of the proceedings. As a matter of fact, she's going to read the throne speech. As a matter of fact, it's the opening of a new era.
Yes, indeed. Salman, I'm glad that you enlightened me as to the young ladies sitting here. And there's one young man actually in red. I don't know if he's part of the team or trainer, because I came in this morning and I saw these lovely young folks in blue, and I said they're probably military cadet people, of the police or something like that. I'm so happy to know that we can have a contingent of young people having an interest in this proceedings here this morning. Just to enlighten folks, those of you who are listening to us across the globe, online, I am sure that you will have the opportunity to experience this historical occasion via the GIS platform. Those of you on radio, wherever you are, we say good morning to you. We noticed the Sergeant of Arms explaining what is required of the strangers. Yes, they're called strangers. Don't ask me why. I guess it's an English parliamentary terminology in the House this morning. That's the folks who come to witness the proceedings. And he certainly gave them the instructions to follow. And they include things like turning off your cell phone completely, not putting it on vibrating, ensuring that you do not take any pictures. Actually, you're not supposed to write as well. You're not supposed to take notes in the house when you're in the house. And generally no speaking, and, you're expected to have a perfect decorum, Cello, when you're sitting in the Houses of Parliament as strangers witnessing the proceedings. And he has completed his job. We can see that the Royal Grenada Police Force, they're out in the forecourt, if you want to call it that, awaiting the arrival of the Governor General. And in the distance, we can hear the police siren coming along the Grand Dance area. It's an indication that she's on her way. And her first task this morning would be to take the inspection of her troops and then proceed into the House.
And that is going to be done in the court outside. And you hear the Sergeant at Arms.
It's the arrival, and you can see the vehicles in the back, well, the square, if you want to call it that, at the back of the the Trade Center. And the Governor General will proceed to inspect the troops.
That apparently could be the Governor General, yes? She's taking... I'm trying to make it out whether it's the Prime Minister there or the Governor General.
I do believe
that apparently is the Prime Minister.
it's the Prime Minister, yes. Because he must be in the House. All members of Parliament must be in the House, including the Prime Minister,
and
before the Governor General.
well, you would get an indication there from the commander. There's the general salute and the royal salute. So what he took there was just the fanfare for the general salute.
Yes. You know, Selwyn, every time you look at the proceedings of Parliament, in particular the opening, it brings you to that colonial era. And we're still steeped in a lot of that. I noticed, for example, in Antigua, they no longer wear the cotton-looking, I call it cotton-looking wigs anymore. That is outdated in their parliamentary system, and I honestly hope that we can get there one of these good days. You know, living in the Caribbean, being Caribbean people, you know, when you see that, it kind of signals, oh my goodness, it must be a very hot occasion. And here we have the arrival of the Prime Minister. I'm not sure if we are able to pick him up, enter in the House. We're not really seeing it on the monitor here.
He's coming in our direction, not yet
Yes.
taking up his seat.
Yes.
We also see the Governor General, Sir Daniel Williams. He's also there, seated. He has his place there on occasions like these, prepared for the former Governor Generals and the Prime Ministers.
We're not seeing, I have not noticed any Prime Minister, ex-Prime Minister Tillman Thomas. I haven't seen him, but I'm sure he's going to be here. He doesn't really miss these occasions unless he's out of the state. And looking at the Sir Daniel Williams, it would appear, I doubt we'll see Sir Carlisle here today. I'm not sure whether he's not too up to it, but it would appear that Sir Daniel will probably be the only Governor General that will be with us when we look back and at who is still there. It's only himself and Sir Carlisle. Yes, you know. And it's always a pleasure to see those who would have served in those two capacities as a Governor General and also as a Prime Minister coming back and sitting in the House in their capacity as statesmen or women who have served us at some point in time.
Well, we see the members of Parliament taking their seats, members of the House of Representatives and the Senate. As a matter of fact, all would be taking the oath this morning as MP and senators.
That's correct. So it's a double sitting you'll have as the
Yes,
opening, and then they will continue the process for the next few weeks.
What usually happens is that the life of the last Parliament, the 9th Parliament, that has ended. And this is the life of the beginning of
the 10th.
The 10th Parliament. So it's a fresh era, and it comes all with the elections just go on, and the returning into office of a new government or we should say the same government continuing.
Continuing
But
in a new era.
Yes, in a new era.
Interesting, Selwyn. You know, but you know, it's amazing that we have before us going into the House a number of new faces, a number of young faces as well, especially as it relates to the upper house, the Senate, which signals a very important era in our times, and it tells us that we have gotten to the stage where we are embracing our youth into leadership and training. Obviously, they're going to be mentored by the senior ones, and you know there seems to be a strong level of succession being established through the whole parliamentary system now in a very, very profound way, Selwyn. We've seen youngsters coming in. We've seen the Honorable Elman Pear coming in as a young senator. Even Delma, who is now seasoned, she's in her second term and so on. Demon Rache has been there. But we're now seeing a cadre of young people in the Senate. I think it would be the largest amount of them coming into the Senate or coming into the parliamentary system at any given time in our history.
Well, they were well shaped for this over a period of time. You would remember the Prime Minister has been saying that the young people need to come to the fore, and he's been looking at his legacy in this light. They come from a background of the schools debating competition. Remember, they used to have this mock parliamentary exercises.
Parliamentary,
As
yes.
a matter of fact, you would remember Katisha.
Katisha,
Yes.
indeed. And I think a lot of young people are looking forward to hearing her in the real, true life of Parliament now.
Obviously. Yeah? So the young people now taking up their rightful place. The first time that I have observed that in any election cycle, because they were a bit subservient to come forward on the political platform, but this election gone, you saw the young people there out on the platforms assisting in the business of their political parties, and they appeared pretty energetic about it, and there was the excitement about it, very much involved. And this is exactly what we could call it's a generational cycle moving into the democracy. And
that's right.
It's a good thing to see that. As a matter of fact, it would motivate their peers also.
Indeed.
And we can see follow-up, and probably in 10, 15 years to come, you would see the young people taking up their rightful place into the whole development aspect of the country from this stage. And this is a good thing. Next thing you would see the young people sitting on the Governor General's chair.
You may have a very young Prime Minister in the future. And Selwyn, this is what some signaling something of importance here. Is saying to the young people, we believe in you. We know that you have the capabilities in many, many areas, and we're not giving up on you. You know, sometimes we give up on young people and we really don't look at their strengths and the qualities that they have that we can utilize in different areas. And this sends a strong signal out there to all of us. Let us embrace them. Let us find room for them in all that we do. I mean, Selwyn, you and I have been mentors to a number of young people coming through the GIS system out of the Imani program, some of them fresh out of TAMCC. And today, when we see them, we are like parents to them, even here this morning.
And they're well established.
Very proud of them, you know. Yes. So you have to embrace them. You have to involve them. And this is a great signal to what can happen with our youth in this country.
Well, let's see what will happen in the next 10 to 15 years. And I know that the long-term planning will indeed give them that opportunity. We see the audience here getting more and more packed. One or two patrons coming in the trickle this time. Not too sure if they will be finding any more seats. We are awaiting the arrival of the Governor General out on the court to inspect the Guard of Honor. This is her first duty. Very ceremonial occasion it is. It's made to be ceremonial in light of the Commonwealth parliamentary democracy. Still have a number of rules and guidelines that go along with it.
And must be followed.
Well, strictly so, yes.
Strictly so.
It brings that order into the whole parliamentary business. Looking at what is going to be happening, as a matter of fact, the members of the House of Representatives, all 15 of them by now, they will get accustomed to being in the parliament by themselves. Not much debate there. It's just a matter of laying down policy and outlining your plans and programs. The debate really is in the Senate, as it was in the past cycle, is in the Senate.
There you have the mace being brought in, and you have actually for both the upper and lower house, Selwyn?
Yes, the maces for both upper and lower houses.
Sergeant of Arms bringing them into the area, and we see the Clerk of Parliament. They also proceeding. Prime Minister Mitchell is at his seat with his 14 parliamentary representatives. And there is some activity taking place in the outer court. We see the Royal Grenada Police Force officers preparing themselves for the arrival of the Governor General. And Selwyn, I'm seeing a vacant seat on the side of the upper house. I'm not sure who is not with us here this morning, or if that is another senator that needs to be.
Well, all the senators have been named already. The 7 on the government side, the 6 on the government side, and the president will be the selection of a president this morning, as well as the selection of a speaker, both president and deputy president, and speaker and deputy speaker. The Clerk of Parliament, Sir Adrian Francis.
By Proclamation appoint. Whereas it's further provided by subsection 2 of section 51 of the Constitution of Grenada that there shall be a session of Parliament once at least in every year, so that a period of 6 months shall not intervene between the last sitting of Parliament in one session and the first sitting in the next session. Now, therefore, I, Cecile Lagrenade, Dame Grand Cross of the most distinguished Order of St. Michael and St. George, Governor General, in and over Grenada, do hereby appoint the Trade Center at Montrouge in the parish of St. George as the place where the first session of the 10th Parliament shall be held at 10 o'clock in the forenoon on Friday, 27th of April 2018, as the time at which the said session shall begin. And members of the said Parliament and all other of Her Majesty's officers and loving subjects in Grenada, and all others who it may concern, are hereby required to take due notice hereof and give the ready obedience accordingly. Given under my hand and the public seal of Grenada, this 19th day of April 2018, in the 66th year of the reign of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. God save the Queen.
There we have it, the proclamation declaring the Trade Center as the place of Parliament, read by the Clerk of Parliament.
Honorable members,
But yes, he's the clerk of
Consequent
Parliament,
upon
acting,
the
yes.
general elections on March 13, 2018, and in accordance with sections 28 and 34 of the Constitution of Grenada, it has become necessary to elect a president and deputy president of the Senate, also a speaker and deputy speaker of the House of Representatives for the 10th Parliament of Grenada. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order number 3 of the Senate, I now invite nominations for the office of President of the Senate.
Mr. Clerk, honorable members, I beg to nominate Senator Chester Humphrey as President of the Senate.
Members, is a nomination for Senator the Honorable Chester Humphrey. Is there a seconder to the motion?
Mr. Clerk, Mr. President, I wish to associate ourselves with the sentiments of the motion.
Thank you very much. There is a seconder. Are there any other nominations? If there being no other nominations, I now declare Senator the Honorable Chester Allington Arthur Humphrey to be the President-elect of the Senate. Senator, would you please come forward to take your oath of affirmation?
This would be Senator Humphrey's second stint as President of the Senate, Selwyn.
Indeed. He did a marvelous job the first time around, and he's no stranger to it.
No stranger to the House, because remember, he was the Labour senator for a number of years in the Senate.
Allington Arthur Humphrey, do solemnly swear that I shall faithfully execute the office of President without fear or favor, affection or ill will, and that in the execution of the functions of that office, I will honor, uphold, and preserve the Constitution of Grenada.
Well, there you have it. Senator Humphrey taking the oath of office and signing accordingly as the President of the Senate for a second term, a continuation of his stint here in the Houses of Parliament.
He's been in the Senate for quite a number of years, no stranger, and particularly he likes what you call intellectual debate.
Indeed, he does.
He's widely read, so to...
And I think he is going to offer great guidance as a grandfather, if I may use that
Honorable
word,
Senators,
in the Senate,
pursuant
especially to
to
the younger
Standing
ones.
Order number 4 of the Senate, I now invite nominations for the office of Deputy President of the Senate.
Mr. Clerk, honorable members, Mr. President, I beg to nominate Senator Christopher Diali to be Deputy President of the Senate. This will be an abstention. He is traveling at present, and this will be the nomination for Deputy President.
Thank you, Senator Steele. Is there a seconder?
Mr. Clerk, I beg to second the nomination.
Honorable Senator Christopher Diali, now Deputy President-elect of the Senate.
Again, Selu, here is one of the long-standing
Honorable
senators.
members of the House of Representatives, what's your understanding? Order number 3 of the House of Representatives. I now invite nominations for the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives. Minister Boyd.
Mr. Clerk, I beg to nominate Michael Pierre as Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Honorable members, Mr. Michael Pierre has been selected to, I've been nominated to be the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Do I have a seconder?
Mr. Clerk, honorable members, I rise to second the nomination for Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Thank you very much, Senate Minister Pierre. Mr. Pierre has been nominated to the post of Speaker of the House of Representatives. I now invite Mr. Pierre. Are there any further nominations? There'll be no further nominations. I now invite Mr. Pierre, Mr. Michael Pierre, to be the Speaker of the House elect.
No
And-
surprise?
Not at
Not
all.
at all.
Not at all. And there goes Honorable Gregory Bowen and Dr. Clarice Modest to find him in the audience of the
audience.
ordinary people.
And this is a intriguing
Well, yes,
exercise.
they have found
to
him.
find the speaker. And there they found
him.
Mr.
They have
Pierre.
found him.
And they're going to encourage him
He's resisting, and he's going to be brought up.
under arrest.
It's the traditional. Yes, look, he's
Look at
giving
that.
problems to.
Oh my goodness.
It's the traditional parliamentary system.
Yes.
And what I was told is that he's still giving problems, so
Well-
getting so close to the chair. And Honorable Gregory Bowen
is
is
it a
fighting.
symbol of being fearful of that seat.
Yes, it's being fearful of the seat
It's
because
quite a challenge for anyone.
before in the traditional medieval times, they used to be anything goes wrong, they used to be executed.
Executed, you know. Amazing. But there he is.
I, Michael Pierre, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law, so help me God. I, Michael Pierre, do swear that I will faithfully execute the office of Speaker without fear or favor, affection or ill will, and that in the execution of the functions of that office, I will honor, uphold, and preserve the Constitution of Grenada, so help me God.
Michael Pierre.
Continuation in the seat of Speaker of the House. And again, Selwyn, what is significant here is the fact that the government is continuing in many respects. And I would imagine if you were in government for 5 years and you're back in Parliament, that is the way to go. Very little disruption,
I now beg
ensuring
for
that the process
nomination for the
continues.
post of Deputy Speaker of the House.
Minister Boyd. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, I beg to nominate the Honorable Anthony Boson to be Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Mr. Anthony Boson has been nominated as the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker of the House. Are there any other? Is there a seconder? Mr. Davio?
Mr. Clerk, honorable members, I second the motion of Honorable Anthony Boson as Deputy Speaker of the House of Parliament.
Are there any other nominations? If not, I now declare that Honorable Anthony Boson to be the Deputy Speaker of the House. I now invite Honorable Anthony Boson to take his oath of office.
Merely a formality. Honorable Anthony Boson, the MP for St. Patrick West. He's going to be the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives. And he's going to be in the place of
Anthony
Mr.
Boson,
Clifton Paul.
Do swear that I will faithfully execute the office of Deputy Speaker without fear or favor, affection or ill will, and that in the execution of the functions of that office, I will honor, uphold, and preserve the Constitution of Grenada. So help me God.
Anthony Boson.
I think, Selwyn, I think it is very appropriate for him at this time, especially seeing that he is the parliamentary representative and not a government minister. So he certainly would have a little bit of time to dedicate to his role in Parliament here as the deputy, especially if the speaker has to travel or is ill or have other engagements that have more importance. So I think it's a fitting choice to have him there.
I now invite members of the Senate to come forward to take the oath of allegiance. So I now invite Senator the Honorable Simon Steele.
Senator Simon Steele, and it is expected that he will also be the leader of government business in the Senate. He has been spearheading things over the past 5 years in the Senate, likewise, and he will be taking the oath as a member of Parliament, member of the upper chamber.
And yes, Selwyn, he is certainly no stranger, and a very profound speaker, very vibrant senator he has been over his stint in the upper
I,
house.
Simon Steele, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Simon Steele, and he has this English accent to go with it also, you know, and proving himself worthwhile for the democracy that we know.
Well, of course, you know, I believe, Selwyn.
Senator the Honorable Judd Cadet.
Judd Cadet, the senator from the National Democratic Congress.
The Judd Cadet, the NNP selected.
Sorry,
yes,
yes, I'm mixing him up with the other young man.
president of the
President
NNP
of
Youth
the
Arm.
NNP Youth Arm. May I correct myself here?
I, Judd Cadet, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successor, according to law, so help me God.
Being one of the youngsters that we spoke about earlier on, youth himself, leading the youth, charging forward with the
Senator
young
the
people in
Honorable
the country.
Norland Cox.
And Senator Cox is no stranger to the Senate as well. This is the second stint. He's also the Minister of Sport, Youth and Culture and the
I,
Arts.
Nolan Cox, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Senator Nolan Cox from the sister isle of Carriacou.
Not forgetting Pity Martinique.
Pity Martinique, sister isles,
Isles, yes,
the
well,
sister
you know,
isles,
usually
Carriacou and
say
Pity
that.
Martinique. He did a very wonderful job the last time around, so he has grown in stature.
Senator the Honorable Winston Garraway.
And here we have our friend Senator Winston Garraway, pastor by design, choice, a minister, and he's been there.
Winston Garraway, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Senator Winston Garraway, and he has also grown in stature in the Senate as well, having that stint over the past 5 years. So it's expected that the young ones, they will get a great deal of guidance. And I know that from the President's chair.
Senator the Honorable Kim George.
Here we have a new senator, Kim George, a lawyer by profession, entering the Senate for the first time. A very
Also,
no-nonsense young woman.
and
She's
youth on
pretty
the
young.
side also.
Indeed. You know,
I, Kim George, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law. So help me God.
and that's something that is so visible of the government vis-a-vis the new National Party, the embracing of women into their fold, in keeping with the United Nations, one of the United Nations Millennium Goals. And we see more and
Senator
more
the
women
Honorable
stepping
Katisha Williams.
Well, they're having that gender balance.
Indeed. And here we have young Katisha. We mentioned her a little earlier on. She's been involved in youth parliament. Again, another professional young woman, a lawyer by profession, entering the parliament. And I think that we're going to be seeing a lot happening in the Senate with these young people, Selwyn. I think they bring a refreshing and renewed.
I, Katisha Williams, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Yeah, you've been talking about a renewed vigor in the parliament.
Yes, yes.
You hear her voice is pretty strong. I'm not too sure if you would remember her having a stint in GIS also.
Oh, indeed, yes, of course I do. And she's been doing some of the official functions like independence. She did the swearing-in ceremony. She's well-spoken.
Senator the Honorable Ron Redhead.
And this is a young senator out of the NDC who, again, brings a lot of youthful vigor and vibrancy, and a lot is expected of him. You know,
I, Ron Livingston Redhead, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Ron Redhead. It's new turf.
Senator the Honorable Glenys Roberts.
And of course, Glenys Roberts, Senator once again. She actually was the parliamentarian in the lower house, representing the South. So she's no stranger to Parliament. And I think that this dear lady has a lot still to offer to Grenada. And we're looking forward to her deliveries within the House.
I, Glenys Roberts, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law.
So help me God. So help me God.
So help me God.
I would say, Cello, in spite of the fact that one may be very familiar with an area, little nerves do enter into the game.
Especially
we
on
know-
occasions
we
like
know
this.
Senator the Honorable Dunstan Campbell.
As the new agriculture representative in the House, Dr. Campbell brings a lot of knowledge as it relates to agriculture. And, he's been contributing tremendously to the Caribbean. And now we're very pleased to have him as part of our Senate. I think he is
I,
certainly going to bring a
Dunstan
lot to it.
Campbell, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Dr. Dunstan Campbell. Everything about him spells agriculture.
Yes, indeed. And I'm sure that the farmers are very excited to have a gentleman of such caliber to represent them in the Senate. Now, not that we
Senator
must
the
give
Honorable
credit.
Christopher Diali. Senator the Honorable Mondi Andre Lewis.
Here we have Andrew Lewis, and he had a very short stint in the last sitting of the last stint of the House, replacing Raymond Roberts as the Labour senator. I think he would have had the opportunity to, on 2 occasions, to enter into the House. So, in essence, he's still new.
I,
a lot is
Mondi
expected
Andre
of him
Lewis,
as well.
do solemnly affirm that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law.
Thank you.
And he indeed provoked a lot of debate. As a matter of fact, the President of the Senate was very well happy about his presentations when he did make that presentation on the budget. Very well researched.
Well, I wonder if it's because he was his mentor over the years. And
Yes.
Andre is a very researched person, if I may say so, and he is
Senator
quite
the Honorable
someone who can
Kerry
handle
James.
himself in any situation. He has proven himself over the years. And here we have the second NDC senator,
Kieran James.
talented young lady. She's probably the baby in the family.
And she's probably the youngest
Yes,
in the Parliament of the Commonwealth.
Yep. And
I, Karine James, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
in the future, we've seen the possibilities of the future this morning.
20-year-old Kieran James. I think it's something that Grenada can boast of, having a 20-year-old, the youngest senator, parliamentarian in the Commonwealth.
And Selwyn, if I may reflect a little bit here and go back to Sir Eric Gary, we must recall that he himself had a lot of faith in youth. And we remember people like Henry.
I now invite members of the House of Representatives.
Young senators.
And I now invite Dr. the Right
Franklin
Honorable
Dolan,
Pete Mitchell to take his oath.
I'm not getting his, I can't remember his last name. We're talking from Mars area. Ashton Frame. There we have the Prime Minister. Let's move right on.
I, Keith Claudius Mitchell, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law. So help me God.
Prime Minister, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell. And by now, he would be able to see this off the top of his head.
Well, I don't think he needs a paper anymore. I mean, you're looking at a lifetime, 34 years, being in Parliament.
The Honorable Gregory Bowen.
It comes just like a normal, everyday thing.
A normal exercise.
And here we have the next man.
I, Clarence Gregory Bowen, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law. So help me God.
Honorable Gregory Bowen, probably the second longest, not probably, he is the second longest in the House after Dr. Mitchell, taking his oath here for another stint at it, and served Grenada well in works, in agriculture at the point in time.
Honorable Clarice Modest Corwin.
Quite a lady, an unbeaten lady.
She has also had a lengthy stint, eh?
Oh, indeed. I mean, I, Clarice Modest Cohen, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
She's becoming to be very famous as the Shortney lady.
She's very, very cultural. I mean, Shortney is, it's in her blood. I mean, Selwyn, when you see her on a, let's say on a Monday pageant day at Queen's Park in the middle
Honorable
of the
Alvin Dabrio.
It's like, wow, there she is. And the people in St. Mark's, that's their pride and joy. You know, it has proven so through the various election cycles, always winning and winning profoundly. It's amazing.
Alvin Martin Dabrio, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law, so help me God.
Honorable Alvin Dabrio.
Dynamic, very dynamic. He's done a lot in that constituency, and a lovable person among his peers and his constituents. I think he's conducting.
Honorable Peter David.
And he's also passionate about fisheries. He's also there in fisheries.
He's from St. John's. What do you expect? It's in his blood.
I, Peter David, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law. So help me God.
There we have it. Honorable Peter David. Again, no stranger to
Honorable Yolan Bain Hosford.
Peter David, back in Parliament.
Interestingly, on the other side, well, he was in the Senate, and now he's in the House of Representatives, represented St. George. St. George's, actually, the town of St. George, yes.
I, Yolan Bain Hosford, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law.
So help me God.
No stranger again.
Yolan B. in Horsford. Very hard worker, very diligent in her constituency.
Queen of Big Parish.
Yes, you will hear it from time to time. And these beautiful ladies there in that program in her constituency in culinary arts, she's the one who spearheaded
Honorable
that, implemented
Oliver
that
Thomas
program.
Joseph.
Here we have Oliver Joseph, his second stint here as the representative of St. David. A very hard-working gentleman.
I,
very
Oliver Thomas
intelligent
Joseph,
individual,
do swear
especially
that
as
I
it
will
relates.
faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law. So help me God.
I was referring, Selwyn, to the fact that he's extremely knowledgeable in trade and trade negotiation and that sort of thing. And whenever you listen to him speaking on it, there's a sense of passion that you really want to get the details, and he seemed to have it.
Yes, it is his forte, really. And
Honorable Kate
coming
Lewis.
from university studies to ensure that he's one of the brightest students in the Caribbean when it comes to trade matters.
Oh, indeed. And here we have young Kate Lewis. She had a short stint in the upper house as a senator before the elections. A teacher by nature. She's
I,
now
Kate Lewis, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
The thing about Kate, when she made her maiden speech here in the Senate, she did warn them, I would just be here for a short time.
She did say, Mr. President, I don't intend to stay here very long. She had her eyes to the prize, and here she is today.
Honorable Pamela Moses.
She's certainly one of the youth. We can certainly put her in that category with a lot to offer.
Honorable Pamela Moses from the constituency of St. Patrick East. Youth on our side also.
Oh yes, I mean,
I,
there's no
Pamela
question about
Moses, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
She made her impression
as well.
Yes, she made her impression in the powerful constituency, St. Patrick East, where prior they had Prime Minister Tillman Thomas there. Then we had yes, he's in the audience.
Honorable Emmeline Pierre.
Maybe refer to her as the youth that led the way for others within the parliamentary system.
Since from that time it's been taking off.
That's right, you know, and quite a lady indeed.
I, Emmeline Pierre, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
I've just been flagged by a friend of ours that today is Kate Lewis's birthday as well. So what a day to be celebrating.
Happy birthday to Kate.
And on this occasion as well. So happy birthday to the young lady. All the best to her.
Good things follow her anywhere she goes.
That's right.
Honorable Nicholas Steele.
And here we have Honorable Nicholas Steele.
Youth on his side also, eh?
Well, he's relatively young in spite of the two little gray hair you may see in and between an island scholar.
I, Nicholas Steele, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
And if I may say so, a lot of credit has to be given to this young man who was able to leave one constituency and willingly accept moving to another one and winning that seat. Again,
Honorable
another
Kendra
historical
Mathurin
occasion
Stewart.
in our political history there.
Well, it shows a mark of brilliance, and it follows him anywhere he goes. You said he was an island scholar, so it's indicative of who he really is.
That's right. There we have Power of Carriacou and Pitty.
I, Kendra Mathurin Stewart, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Carriacou and Deputy Martinique should be
right.
very proud. And a lawyer by profession again.
A lawyer by profession.
Following in the footsteps of Elvin Nimrod.
Evelyn Nimrod was a lawyer, and her husband, Nigel Stewart, was a senator, he himself being a lawyer.
Honorable Delma Thomas.
She has certainly have a lot of charm and a lot of personality outside of having being educated and being professional. And that brings a lot with people, the warmth, the caring nature, and so on. And I think that she's going to do very well for Carriacou and Pitty Martinique. And remember, too, that we have a Senator Norman Cox, who's also out of Carriacou as a minister.
I,
Together
Delma
they are going
Thomas,
to
do swear
quite a lot.
that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty's Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Honorable Delma Thomas becoming a powerhouse in the politics of the country.
Oh, indeed. And you know, you've seen the growth with her over the years she's been there. It's so refreshing. Her passion for people, especially the elderly and the vulnerable. You hear her speaking of them all the time. And no wonder she's
Honorable
steeped
Anthony
in social
Boson.
services. That's her dream, that's her life. It's amazing.
Very passionate about what she does, bringing people together. Her mantra is uniting all regardless.
Yes, and that is admirable in its own right, you know. And here we have Anthony Boson.
I, Anthony Boson, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law. So help me God.
Anthony Boson, an economist by nature, a man of stature, and he holds St. Patrick West dearly.
To his heart. You know, I've known him for quite a long time.
Honorable Tobias
He's somebody
Clement.
that I never thought would venture into politics. But Selwyn, I can assure you, and we know that Dr. Mitchell has a way of convincing people that, hey, this is the right way to go. And before you know it, you're on a career path. And I think that's what really happened with Anthony Boson. You know, he's been a seasoned politician now.
Tobias Clement.
I, Tobias Clement, do affirm that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law.
Tobias Clement, also from the Sister Isles, and he is here again in Parliament for yet another time. As a matter of fact, you would remember Tobias when he first entered the fray. He lost his seat. And then he went off to study. And he's still studying, mind you. He's in that education realm. He's in SGU.
That's right.
Right, and he's a professor there, no, a lecturer.
Quite a gentleman. You know, when you speak with him, there's an aura about him, the smile, the aura that just gravitates to you and make you feel welcome. You know, somebody you can easily converse with. And if I may say, I like the color of his shirt this morning. Brave guy.
Yes, he's all smiles.
Always.
Please stand. Let us pray.
So the houses, including with the strangers.
Grant in the the Almighty God, members of both houses, that they may wisely deliberate for the good of this country and for the glory of thy holy name. Please join with me as we say together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Pray your wish, honorable members, that the houses do now adjourn with pleasure to await the arrival of Her Excellency.
Aye.
Aye.
And there you have it. We're just about getting ready to welcome the Governor General into the houses.
So the Parliament is relaxed for a moment, awaiting the arrival of the Governor General, and the mace bearers. They will be going at the back in the court for when the Governor General arrives.
And you know, the wording that takes place within the parliamentary system is sometimes unusual to the strangers or the lay persons. And when you hear the President of the Senate say, "Is it your wish, honorable members, that the houses do now adjourn during pleasure to await the arrival of Her Excellency the Governor General?" And you put it in the lay terms, saying,
It's
"Be
all,
relaxed."
it's all English terminology, fitting for that English Westminster style parliamentary process. Yes, the Shakespearean type of language, Elizabethan language.
Indeed. And you have things like the word pray being used, pray be seated, and so on. I imagine, Selwyn, that all the new members of the houses, both houses, would have been briefed in a session as to the proceedings and the procedures,
Yes, they were.
the standing orders, and that sort of thing to prepare them for even the initiation today, because this is basically an initiation ceremony for quite a few of them who are new, entering the houses for the first time. Because, of course, a lot of the language that is used may not be familiar to them. No one really prepares himself to be a senator or a minister to enter parliament. It's a process that takes place. And obviously, especially for the young ones coming in, one would expect that they would have little errors from time to time. I do recall one parliamentarian, I think it was my dear friend, was it Alexandra Otwinwell? I don't want to calling her wrong in the wrong context. Did ask to speak at a point in time on her first day for some clarification, you know, and this is expected. We expect that they all will not follow the procedure to a T, but it's a learning curve, it's a learning process for them. And I think it's going to be a very exciting time, especially in the Senate this year, because sometimes we underestimate the minds of the young people in our society. And when we put them in those positions, they surprise us.
Exactly so. Coming from secondary school, that kind of background would probably prepare you for an occasion like this. I remember in my time we used to have the literary debates, and you are called upon to be very eloquent in speech. And the youngsters have been having a lot of that in the era at the time. As a matter of fact, they still have the Grenada debates around. So it gives you that feeling that you know to display that level of skill, literary skill that you have. And if you wish to get into politics, you would be molded. I don't think that it would take them that long to get adjusted. They would be given the standing orders, and it calls for study. And once you study it clearly, you will get a hang of it. I know that in the Senate in particular, where there is debate, they will be guided by the man who is so eloquent first in the language.
Honorable Chester
Yes, you know, when he speaks, he reminds me also of Brother Timothy Antwine. They are so eloquent,
Yes.
you know. if you listen to Brother Nazim Burke, he has that eloquence in being able to present your case. And the lawyers would be very familiar with that territory because this is their schooling when you reach the university.
That's right. You know, and we cannot deny the fact that media training would give us that opportunity as well, Selvin.
Yes, you have to make your presentation when called upon to do so.
You know, but it's quite a morning here. When we look down into the room, we can see that the hall is filled. I do believe there is some measure of videoing on the other side as well for folks who would not have been able to get a seat within the the main area of the trade center. It is a historical day for Grenada, the first session of the 10th Parliament. We can hear some wind on the outside. And as we're listening to the wind on the outside, Salo, just to reflect a little bit on our present weather condition, we would notice that we did not have a dry season this year. We into May, literally, and outside is still very green, little showers in the night. And you know, they say the April showers brings May flowers, and we're heading into May. So let's hope that that climate change that we're experiencing, does not affect our fruits or mangoes or plums, etc. Because you know it's a balance of both the sun and the heat and the rain and everything. I hope not too, because I love fruits, you know. And speaking on that, in recent weeks, it was announced, I think this week, that there's a lot of that's going to take place on the converting the St. George's, the Carenage, to a climate.
Yes, sir.
That is such great news for us. I think it is important too that we're taking the lead in the region to indicate to the rest of them that we are very, very serious about this climate change business, and we intend to deal with it head on to ensure that we can protect our coastal areas and, you know, make a change in the world. And I think that if we all follow that pattern, we can definitely do some great work and some great changes and try to mitigate against this whole climate change that is really affecting us one way or the other.
But it's going to take a lot on us. And first of all, I would like to say education is the main theme when it comes to that. Anything as it relates to making changes, you need to be aware of what would happen with the changes and go for it. The development takes place in like manner. There are many changes when it comes to development processes. Just a moment there, you mentioned about the occasion here being historic, and in the sense, when I looked at it, this is maybe the last time that we would be meeting here at the Trade Center, because the new Parliament building is due to be opened on the 8th of June. And well, the flamboyance from on the outside, especially when it is lit up at night time, it gives you the feeling that, hey, you got to be there for the first occasion.
Well, I see it from my house, and believe me, Selwyn, I am not going to miss that for anything. I mean, only God can stop me from missing that, you know, illness or whatever. But I am looking forward to that with a lot of passion. I've seen some shots of the inside, the interior. I see the building from where I live. I see it in the night, and oh my goodness, it represents such power. And not power in a negative sense, but power in that positive, great sense that we're moving on, you know, and you look at it like should I use the word, like a citadel sitting there, just glaring across the entire St. George's area. Wherever you are in St. George's, you can actually see it, you know. So I'm looking forward to that day. Indeed.
It's special in the true sense. I know that the struggles involved in ensuring that we get the old Parliament building as we know it to be up and running. And it was good of the thinkers to have this new Parliament building, a completely new structure. And if you notice, the location is also a historic location, somewhere there about Mount Welldale.
Government House across that area there.
So I guess as much that visitors would have a lot to be, tourists in particular would be going there from time to time to look at the structure and for the history behind it, the environment that there is. So there would be a lot of stories to tell. We are here at the Trade Center. Just to remind our viewers and listeners out there, we are here at the Trade Center. We are at the official opening of the first session of the 10th Grenada Parliament, and this comes with the last general election on March 13, and which was won a sweeping victory, landslide, so to speak, by the New National Party again for the second consecutive time, and also for the third time in the governance of the country. New faces, we can call it a transition into the parliamentary democracy, bringing a lot of youth. We just cannot help but overemphasize the fact that it's going to be a young democracy, so to speak. We await the arrival of the Governor General, and who will be here to at least grace the Parliament with her presence. Officially, she is to spark things off. She will start with inspecting the guards of honor, and then enter the chamber for that throne speech.
Well, I can hear the sirens in the background, and I'm not going to make the mistake this time for sure. This is the Governor General coming in. You know, normally when you have the Parliament sitting, you would hear the Prime Minister coming in. But this time I sort of erred and said it was a PM at the time. It was really the Governor General was the Prime Minister coming in, because everyone must be in the house before she arrives. She is in charge. She's the lady at the top of the hill. And there we see her now. Arriving out there in the yard, the courtyard, if you want to refer to it that way.
Governor General Dame Cecile Lagrenard.
And of course, the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House there, welcoming her as well. And, we have the national anthem being played by the police band in the square. Well, we hear the national anthem played in the distance there, Cello. And the salute, the royal salute.
The Governor General will now be inspecting the ranks. She's been invited to do so.
So she's going to inspect our troops, the Royal Grenada Police Force.
And I like what you said there, her troops.
It is our troops. The Royal Grenada Police Force. And still remains that way. You know, we have certain things that are still very much part of the influence and culture of the British. Remember that we're still a Commonwealth country. Head of state is the Governor General. She is the Queen's representative, unless we become a republic, and then that would change. We have a president if we become a republic, like Trinidad as its president and so on. But for the time being, as independent nation of part of the Commonwealth,
Britain, yes.
we still have that procedure. Remember when the prince was here, she had all care of the prince at the time. Visit of any of the royal family, members of the royal family, the Governor General, certainly their representative here.
The Governor General, Dame Cecilia Grenada, taking the royal salute for yet the second time. She is now met by the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives.
The Clerk of Parliament is also there. And she's going to move into the antechamber of the Trade Center, which is basically to the back, if you call that dressing area. And she has a duty in there to sign the Distinguished Visitors Book. Selwyn, this is quite a morning so far. I think that for the folks who are listening to us across the World Wide Web and on GIS and whatever radio stations carrying this broadcast, we coming to you live from the Trade Center. It's the first sitting of the 10th Parliament of Grenada.
And we are awaiting the Governor General entering the chamber. As a matter of fact, that will be with a fanfare again by the trumpeters of the Royal Grenada Police Force Band, now making their way to take up their positions.
And you probably will hear them more than most persons because they're extremely close to us at this time. The Royal Grenada Police Force, the band of the Royal Grenada Police Force have some rather competent musicians, and most times we seem not to appreciate who they are and what they do. These are skilled musicians who not only play music, but read music as well. And we are very appreciative of their work. And most of us just see them around carnival time and, playing at these occasions, but they have a serious role as well within their system as part of the Royal Grenada Police Force, and this happens to be one of the areas that is very official to them.
And they like what they do.
Indeed, it's a career area as well. We see 3 relatively young officers.
Again, emphasizing on the word youth.
Indeed, and we do have quite a contingent of young officers within the Royal Grenada Police Force. You see them from time to time Of course, their duties may seem simple to you, but it's a whole training process that takes place when they come out of the training school. You may see them in traffic, or you may see them at a function where they're with other senior officers. Like even here this morning, there are quite a number of young officers that you see with the senior officers at the Trade Center. And I was very much not surprised, but pleased to see the young faces, very eager to learn. In some instances, you see that they will refer with eyes to the senior officer for some sort of direction as to how to handle this and what and you see the enthusiasm in them, and you know that they're heading in the right direction. It's a career area. It's no longer a case going into the Royal Grenada Police Force of, oh well, I can't find a job, so I'm going to go and join the police. You see that they're very serious about having a career, an opportunity to having a career. A lot of them are educating themselves along the way. When you look at the contingent of the Royal Grenada Police Force today in comparison to 30 years ago, you see a different group of people.
Different perspective. Some of them going on scholarships.
That's right.
Some attending SGU, going abroad to China.
Well, even at TAMCC, there's a program in there as well for them. They're officers in there, a number of them with their masters in various aspects of policing, criminology, and other areas. So qualification becomes key with the experience. And we must be proud of the men and women in uniform. And speaking of women again, Selwyn, right now we have a police force at this time in our lives that have the most women.
Yeah, very much
in
so.
the police force.
Very much so. Also in the prisons. I noticed
That's
that they're
right.
taking in a great deal of women and the prisons just as well.
So we are very, very proud. Well, I am, of course, of the
Well,
Royal
yeah,
Grenada
you'll
Police Force.
be in the category of being female. Well, I hope that you all are not overpowering the men, because as it is, the men seem to be accommodating the women dearly, and this comes with a lot of awareness and education, that the society must have that gender balance if it has to go forward. It's not like the yesteryear. It's not the traditional thing anymore. Both men and women holding hands together and carry the country further into being a developed society. As a matter of fact, over the past few years, they're saying that Grenada is now a more developed country. So some of the aid that you would have gotten long ago is no longer here.
Exactly. And that is because you're considered to be in a different category. So here we have the President of the Senate, Speaker of the House, entering back. Getting back to the table as the proceeding here at the Trade Center continues. It's the first sitting of the 10th Parliament of Grenada. It's just a matter of time before Her Excellency enters.
And the mace being placed back in its rightful position, both for the House of Representatives and the Senate.
Sergeant of Arms doing their thing.
Honor the members, pray be seated.
And when we look at to the top, we see that both the Speaker of the House and the President have assumed a new position in the House here this morning. They've been seated in the two top categories up there to the top. We also have, I'm seeing, past President of the Senate,
Sir Lawrence Joseph.
Sir Lawrence Joseph
Sir Lawrence
is there.
Joseph, yes.
We also have the
Prime Minister is also there, former
Prime Minister Tillman Thomas. And on the other end, we have the, Selwyn, your eyesight much better than mine.
The president, former one-time president of the Senate. Leslie
Ann Sion. And not
it's the bishop.
Bishop? Is that the bishop that's there?
I think it's the bishop.
So we very much heavy here this morning. And when I say heavy, in terms of attendance, we have quite a contingent in here of the Royal Grenada Police Force. We have permanent secretaries and senior officials from the various ministries that will be here. You would have judges and other important persons here. I think that they are members of the diplomatic corps that will be here with us this morning. Well-wishers and other important persons. And when I say important persons, I refer to the regular persons here who are important, because if they weren't here today, we wouldn't be happy because we would have an empty house.
The ship of state, yeah.
You know? So it is quite a morning as we await the arrival of the Governor General. The fanfare will be signaling her entry, and the proceedings will continue. The house is pretty.
There's a bit of hush-hush.
I was just about to say that the house is pretty quiet.
The expectation, the anxiety.
And then they're following the instructions of the Sergeant of Arms, who would have impressed them upon them the importance of, following the proceedings and following the regulations, if you want to call it that, that is expected from them in the house. Be quiet, no cell phones, totally off, no writing. Should not be disturbing the house at any given time. And I can assure you that we're certainly seeing them following those instructions to the T.
Well, anytime you're caught disturbing the house, you know you will be evicted.
Of course, you have to. There's no question about it. I've had the opportunity to see the Sergeant of Arms issuing 2 warnings and indicating that if he has to warn a 3rd time, he will be asking you to leave.
The Governor General makes her entry,
to Fair Isles
by her aide car.
There you have the pray be seated. Her Excellency Dame Cecile asking the House to be seated as she prepares to deliver the throne speech delivered to her by her Prime Minister, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell.
Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, members of Parliament, our nation embarks on this first session of the 10th Parliament with a deep sense of gratitude to Almighty God for his immeasurable blessings bestowed on our beautiful tri-island state and people. We are exceedingly grateful for all that we have achieved together in recent years, and we look to the future with optimism, secure in the knowledge that as long as we continue to work together, we can achieve much more. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, on March the 13th, the people of this nation were called on to once again exercise their democratic right to chart the course of this nation for the next 5 years. The result was an overwhelming mandate given to my government to continue along the trajectory of growth and opportunities that we have seen in the last 5 years. This is a responsibility that my government cannot and will not take lightly. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, my government is faced with the urgent task of meeting expectations now to reassure them that they have made the right choice. For this reason, the task of completing projects currently on stream will be tackled with renewed vigor and urgency. My government also strives to secure new initiatives that will create more and varied employment opportunities, especially for our young people, even while we work to ensure that our elderly and vulnerable are appropriately cared for, supported, and respected. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, my government commences this new term with sights set firmly on reinforcing the most solid foundation on which our democracy can stand. My government has always demonstrated its commitment to the principles of democracy, social justice, and the rule of law. A visible symbol of that commitment is our Parliament building. It is against this backdrop that one of my government's first major actions will be to open our new Parliament building, which was constructed with the generous assistance of the governments of the United Arab Emirates and Mexico. My government anticipates that within the next month, this goal will be realized and Parliament will be held in its rightful home. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, I am happy to report that going into this new period of governance, Grenada's economy is in a much stronger position than it was 5 years ago, thanks to the sacrifices and resolve of our people and the support of our development partners. Macroeconomic stability has, for the most part, been restored, and our economy has experienced significant growth in each of the last 5 years. Our fiscal and debt situations have also improved significantly, and unemployment rates have declined dramatically, although we recognize that this rate is still too high. My government has implemented a solid fiscal framework to ensure adherence to fiscal discipline going forward, and reforms have been enacted that will help to promote higher economic growth and generate more employment. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, my government, though satisfied, promises not to become complacent. We have achieved a lot in the last 5 years, but we cannot afford to sit on our laurels. We still have much work to do in order to fully consolidate our economic gains and build a sustainable future for all. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, consistent with the promises made to the Grenadian people, my government's main focus for this session of Parliament will be to continue the transformation of our society, to secure the welfare of our people, to efficiently manage our economy to ensure the creation of jobs and a reduction in unemployment, to promote economic growth and social progress. Continuing the transformation of our society. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, my government understands that if a democracy is to function effectively, people must be placed at the center of the decision-making and development process. Further, my government believes that development comes with change, and that change must be accepted by the people before it can be realized. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, in the last 5 years, my government has especially seen this to be true. The nation has witnessed the introduction of the social compact formed between my government, the trade union movement, the business community, the churches, civil society, and the non-government organization. The commitment made by my government to ensure that every sector is represented at the table is rooted in the belief that everyone's voice must be heard, and not only during the period of elections. In that vein, my government is reaching out to the present membership of the social partners to broaden and strengthen the framework that has served this country so well in the last few years, so that every sector has an expanded seat at the table, including community, youth, and student groups. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, in the absence of a formal parliamentary opposition, my government is again inviting the largest opposition political organization to join the partnership and take their rightful place at the table, so as to give full and formal effect to the voices of over 20,000 brothers and sisters of this nation. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, the economic successes of the last 5 years were built on the foundation of the social partnership that we forged. Its expansion can only augur well for the optimal development of this beautiful country. My government appreciates that while it might have won all the seats in Parliament, and while there is no formal opposition, it must and will respect the rule of law, defend democracy, and promote good governance and accountability, while fully respecting the right of the citizenry to express divergent views. Securing the welfare of our people. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, my government firmly appreciates that every society is complex with a dynamic grouping of citizens, and government has a responsibility to offer protection to each of those groups equally. My government therefore believes that appropriate healthcare, education, and housing are equivalent to liberty, justice, and equality, in that they are not commodities for sale or special privileges only afforded to some. Instead, these are all rights to which every Grenadian, boy and girl, man and woman, are entitled. As a consequence, every decision my government takes must be geared towards protecting and enhancing these rights. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, a healthier and more educated people is dependent not only on service delivery, but also on the appropriate use of such services and the overall changes in behavior that might otherwise undermine the very goal it sets out to achieve. Making services available to those without access is important and necessary for poverty eradication. But my government understands that better livelihoods and an improved quality of life can only be realized when government services are reliably delivered, widely accessible, effectively and appropriately administered and utilized. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, in the area of education, my government will continue to reform the education and training curriculum to better address the development objectives of my government, as well as the growing needs of the private sector. Emphasis will be placed on securing better outcomes in science, technology, English, and math. Investment in these areas is compulsory in order to build a globally competitive citizenry and reduce unemployment here at home. My government will continue to build the capacity of schools professionals through training and other opportunities for educators and ministry staff. In terms of physical infrastructure, a number of schools are targeted to receive major renovation and rehabilitation work, which will enhance the quality of educational opportunities and better aid the learning and teaching environment of our students and teachers. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, my government will continue to invest in strengthening social safety net programs to protect the poor and most vulnerable groups in our society, such as children, the elderly, and the disabled. We will also support reforms to highlight gender equality and social inclusion in order to expand access to basic services. Given that the lack of appropriate housing continues to affect the well-being of vulnerable families, my government continues to urgently address this critical need. I am pleased to report that the second phase of the Chinese low-income housing program has commenced in several areas around the country through the generous support of the government of the People's Republic of China. Homes are currently being constructed for families in Corinth and St. David and the Villa in St. Patrick. Construction will soon commence in Bushaju in St. George, Diamond in St. Mark, and Dumfries in Carriacou. My government also continues to review and improve the administration of safety net programs, such as the support for education, empowerment, and development, the SEED program, the house repair and needy assistance programs, the uniform and transportation assistance program, and the special projects program in order to ensure that we curb abuses within the system. My government has been appraised that some who do not merit certain benefits have been able to access them because of weaknesses in the administration of these programs, or because they provide false information that the checks and balances have not been able to flag. My government recognizes and accepts responsibility for the weaknesses and abuses in the administration of safety net programs, and it will be resolute in its efforts to ensure that all social programs serve the needs of those they are intended to serve, the most vulnerable among us. For that reason, my government has temporarily suspended the needy assistance special projects and other such programs for 1 month to allow for review and revamping so as to close loopholes and better manage the services to our vulnerable, while also protecting the integrity and use of the people's resources. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, when we speak of vulnerable citizens, we must never forget our retirees. Restoring pensions to public officers is a task which is long overdue, but one which my government is determined to resolve. A memorandum of understanding has already been signed with the trade union movement, and the formula for pension restoration is being worked out. And even while we work to resolve the pension issue, we are cognizant that retired public servants continue to pass on without ever seeing the correction of the unjust decision made in 1983 to revoke their rights to a pension. My government is pleased to note that while the process of reinstatement is long and arduous, it is now within sight. Meanwhile, public servants and other citizens must also have better access to appropriate, effective health care. In this area of healthcare, my government has spoken extensively about and made significant progress toward implementing the National Health Insurance. A dedicated secretariat has been installed, and the technical details are being worked out for a full rollout of this noteworthy endeavor. My government is also committed to ensuring that the country's overall health infrastructure is adequate. In that regard, retrofitting and upgrades are being done on health facilities such as the Princess Alice Hospital, health facilities in Carriacou, and elsewhere around the country. The second phase of construction of the General Hospital is nearing completion, and the facility is expected to be commissioned shortly. We will continue to review staffing and other capacity and management needs at clinics and hospitals to aid in better service delivery. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, it is not sufficient to provide more medication and better health facilities. My government must also diligently multiply efforts to enhance the overall management of the health sector, and even further, mount a campaign to emphasize the need for healthier lifestyles across the length and breadth of this nation if we are to fully achieve our developmental potential. As cliched as the saying is, a healthier people is indeed a wealthier people. Just as my government tries to build a healthier citizenry, it must also build a healthier environment to withstand the economic and social shocks of climate change. Of necessity, there must be significant and urgent investment in overhauling and strengthening our nation's infrastructure. To this end, the ongoing execution of the ministry's asphalt and concrete road maintenance program remains a key priority for economic development. My government will continue its work on the agriculture feeder roads with a third phase which extends the network of roads throughout the interior of the agriculture belt. Other major road projects include the St. Patrick's Road network upgrade and the Guave Extreme Rainfall Project, both of which will improve primary and secondary roads. Additionally, my government is committed to completing the St. John's River Flood Mitigation Project, which is a part of the World Bank-funded Disaster Vulnerability Reduction Project, which targets flood mitigation in the River Road area. Other major infrastructural projects scheduled for 2018 include the lighting of the National Cricket Stadium and the Lassagers playing field, as well as the installation of flood lighting in community playing fields and basketball courts throughout our nation. My government, in partnership with the People's Republic of China, is also moving ahead with the announced plans to rehabilitate and upgrade the Maurice Bishop International Airport with respect to its infrastructure, security, and services, and the provision of adequate accommodation and holding facilities for goods exported and imported. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, as we build and fortify infrastructure, my government must also give effect to new and existing policy frameworks that are designed to protect our people and environment in this era of climate change. It is in this regard that my government has installed a new and dedicated ministry to oversee the affairs of all activities related to building climate resilience, protecting the marine, coastal, and land environment, and ensuring that we build our resilience to natural disasters such as hurricanes, which have become a cruel fact of life, especially in our region. We know that as small island development states, we do not always have the resources to do what is necessary to protect our people, livelihood, and assets, but my government will continue to be tireless in this effort to use Grenada's position as chair of the Small Island States Forum and as a leader among small states on the issue of climate change to access a portion of the billions of dollars that are available globally to implement the changes necessary for Grenada's resilience initiatives. Already, we have received significant support to aid in the development of our water treatment and other facilities. My government also intends to secure grants that will create a more resilient and sustainable St. George. my government echoes its call to the international community to recognize the Caribbean's vulnerability in the face of climate change and to provide the necessary development support and solutions that appropriately relate to our realities as we strive to protect our environment and our people. Efficient management of our economy to ensure the creation of jobs and reduce unemployment. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, our efforts to take care of our people and our environment will all be for naught if my government does not continue to effectively manage the economy as it has done in the last 5 years. The gains achieved under the Structural Adjustment Program must be secured if Grenada is to continue taking care of its affairs. My government has repeatedly said that those gains were achieved by the different sectors working together and by prudent fiscal management and oversight. It is in light of this that my government will continue to strengthen the legislative framework necessary to ensure that the benefits of the homegrown program are safeguarded for sustainability and are also able to reach every sector of our population. My government will continue to work with the social partners on legislative provisions such as the Fiscal Responsibility and Public Procurement Acts, which were implemented by my government in the last administrative period, even while new legislative measures are enacted to further bolster growth and administrative compliance. My government will continue to work with the leadership of the public service in that regard. In 2018, the Ministry of Legal Affairs will focus on concluding outstanding matters in fulfillment of government's legislative agenda. High on the agenda will be the Pensions Reform Bill and the National Health Insurance Bill. Promoting economic growth and social progress. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, my government will continue to seek investments and partnerships for the creation of sustainable jobs and opportunities for our people, with the aim of providing employment to those who need jobs and are qualified for them. For this reason, my government will continue to invest in our productive services by providing incentives, especially in areas such as tourism, agriculture, and manufacturing. Within the next year or two, Grenada will see the opening of several prized world-class hotel and resort facilities, such as the Silver Sands Hotel, the Point at Piticalavini, Himpton Kawana Bay, Hideaway Condominiums, and others, which will not only significantly boost the tourism sector with increased room stock for stayover visitors, but will also provide full-time and other employment for hundreds of citizens. Moreover, these tourism projects have already committed to linking their services with the agriculture sector, thus providing improved livelihoods for farmers and fisherfolk who will supply local produce. New and innovative technologies will be used to revolutionize the way our people have traditionally practiced agriculture. In so doing, my government intends to encourage more young people to get involved in the sector as an attractive form of income generation and wealth creation. Strategic investments in the sector will be pursued to increase agriculture productivity, enhance food and nutrition security, increase employment and income, especially in the rural communities, increase foreign exchange earnings, and promote climate-smart agricultural practices. A significant body that will work to secure these goals will be the new Climate Smart Agriculture and Rural Enterprise Program, SAEP, an initiative derived from the successful Market Access and Rural Enterprise Program, MARIP. The SAEP is supported by the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, the Caribbean Development Bank, and the Government of Grenada. Its mission is to implement climate-smart practices leading to better livelihoods for farmers and other small businessmen and women in this era of climate change. SAEP will also provide enterprise business support to small businesses with the provision of technical, vocational, and skills training programs which will significantly address the unemployment situation, especially in the rural communities. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, my government understands that these goals are only possible with the appropriate finances to fund them. This is why sound fiscal management of the economy is essential, even while we seek other resources. My government is therefore encouraged by the findings so far of its oil and gas exploration initiative. One well was already discovered with millions of cubic feet of gas that is ready to be exploited, and the experts have said that there are several more wells to be drilled, which potentially have even larger amounts. The explorers have already signed an agreement with the government of Trinidad and Tobago for the purchase of Grenada's gas resources. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, my government's outlook is one of cautious optimism, as we do not want to make projections too prematurely or quickly. However, my government is cognizant that finding oil and gas is a major game changer for Grenada's economy. The development of this sector will give us the opportunity to rapidly develop the economy, reduce unemployment, fund our social programs, and expand entrepreneurship and innovation, especially among our youth population. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, my government's vision is one of growth and progress, and our young people are at the center of that vision. This is why support will continue to be provided through a revamped Imani program and other empowerment programs targeting the youth, even as we seek to increase their access to scholarships and training opportunities at home and abroad. My government is committed to the holistic development of our young people, and we are very excited about the prospects under the Ministry of Youth, Sport, Culture, and the Arts. The ministry, in coordination with the Ministry of Tourism and Culture, must be commended for its strong support to the organizers of the second inaugural Grenada Invitational held last weekend, which saw some of the world's greatest athletes competing on our local stage and inspiring our young people. Our local athletes are also being given exposure like never before, and one by one, they are showing that they can excel internationally. Through the broadcast of the Invitational on the ESPN channel, our country is also getting unprecedented hemispheric and global coverage, and our tourism product is being superbly promoted, even as it continues to be hailed among the world's best. Sports tourism is indeed on the rise in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, and our athletes are showing great promise. My government takes this opportunity to commend the organizers of the Invitational, as well as the athletes who competed in the event. In that vein, we also congratulate the management and team, and especially the gold and bronze medalists who represented Grenada at the recently held Commonwealth Games in Australia. Our nation was justifiably proud to witness their performances and the overall representation of Grenada. Further encouraged by their dedication, potential, and promise, government will continue its work related to tourism and sports product enhancement, developing programs in schools and communities that promote sport, culture, and the arts, thus continuing to put Grenada on the map. We will also continue to build capacity among the professionals who are called upon to execute these world-class initiatives on behalf of our beautiful country. Conclusion. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, my government is grateful for the support provided in the last 5 years by the social partners and the Grenadian people. That support and unity restored Grenada to economic growth and social prominence on the international stage. As we forge ahead as a nation during this period of governance, my government looks forward with renewed optimism to working with the social partners to advance our country's development. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, my government has reaffirmed its priorities for this, the first session of the 10th Parliament. The implementation of the initiatives outlined will be seen throughout the fiscal year. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, members of Parliament, may God guide you all in your deliberations and render you equal to the sacred trust bestowed upon you. May God continue to richly bless our beautiful tri-island state of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, and enfold us all in his boundless love and care.
Speech by the Governor General.
Okay, we're getting a feedback coming there at us, Selwyn.
Forward by the Prime Minister. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, I would like to associate the Senate with the sentiment of the motion.
Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, I rise to associate ourselves with the sentiments of the motion. Second.
motion be approved. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary, say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Honorable members of the House of Representatives, the question is that the debate of the address delivered by the Governor General be deferred to a date to be named. Honorable members of the House of Representatives, those who are of that opinion, say aye. Of the contrary opinion, say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
All right, so basically, well, Selwyn, it's the fanfare that signals the Governor General is about to leave the room and move into the antechamber. And in
Honorable members, will be seated.
just want to reflect a little bit on the fact that the Prime Minister would have made the following motion, seconded by another member of the House, which you didn't hear a little earlier on because of some technical difficulties. And it would have read, be it resolved that the Honorable Houses of Parliament record their thanks for the gracious address delivered today to the Houses by the Governor General. That's basically what he would have said. And be
Honorable
further
members,
resolved
the Houses now stand adjourned, signing here.
that debate on the address be deferred to a date to be named, and that, of course, would be the sitting of the Houses to follow. Well,
It's where they take the adjournment, and basically it would be coming down to the end of the proceedings for today. The ceremonial opening of the first sitting, the 10th Grenada Parliament. And the throne speech said it all, and basically looking at the plans of the government for here on, as probably to the end of the budgetary period, and a number of pronouncements. And you would see that there is a great deal of emphasis on this whole business about youth in education, youth
in agriculture,
yes.
technology, training, development, and the government is living up to their campaign promise where youth concerns are, and certainly showing it in so many different respects, not only in appointing young senators and so on, but also in bringing today a basket of items that are youth related for the development and the future of our young people in Grenada. Carriacou and Pittymouth.
Youth. Everything is about youth. Youth on the front burner. And indeed, just the time fitting for emphasis to be played on youth development in particular. And just can't help underscoring the need for the young people of the nation to come forward. It's going to be their cue, as a matter of fact, and how well they're going to be motivated into the processes of community development, engagement in organizations. And this is exactly the train of thought by the new parliament here under the leadership of Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell. One of the things that hitting the airwaves a lot is the whole oil and gas exploration business, and I could see the Prime Minister contemplating that if this is going to strike, I'm not going to say gold in a sense, but platinum, we expect that we can see a lot of development taking place in the various sectors. Specifically, there's been talk about investment in the tourism sector. As you noticed over the last 5 years, a lot of emphasis was also placed on hotel and tourism development. So it is expected Grenada in that cultural realm could see tourism and agriculture. As a matter of fact, there's this greater move now to put tourism and agriculture together. I think that
Indeed,
Sandals in particular has
Sandals, the new Silver Sands
yes.
Hotel have been engaging with farmers, and that is the way to go, Selwyn. The other things that I noticed in the delivery here this morning, a lot of talk about climate change and making St. George's a climate smart, resilient town. We mentioned that earlier on. There is a lot to be done in that area, and not only that, there's a lot of funding out there for climate change projects and so on. And we notice that the government is certainly going out there
yes.
and engaging. We have the water project with Nawasa. Now we hear about other projects that's going to take place to put us in a more climate resilient position. That was key to me. Also, the fact that I want to reflect a little bit on the oil and gas, where the speech referred to cautious optimism.
Yes.
And it means that you have to deal with this issue very carefully, ensure you make the right decisions, because it is something that can impact our economy in a major way.
Because we see Trinidad now facing shortages with natural
precisely.
gas. And well, Trinidad and Grenada could work together, make
most
amends.
definitely.
Trinidad probably making amends for where they would have had the shortfall, and Grenada probably super.
Well, I think we're in a very good position where Trinidad is concerned. Because you think about it, if Trinidad did not have that shortfall, we would have to seek other partners or other countries. It made it much more difficult for us to see any sort of development in that area. The other thing that was very, very prominent in that speech is that of the social partners, everybody working together. And even a call was made this morning for the major opposition party to be part of that process. And again, Sella, we know that Dr. Mitchell has always been making that call, that clarion call for togetherness, for people coming together, working together for the benefit of Grenada. And leaving all your differences aside, we can work together. We can make this thing happen. And once again, we see the call here this morning.
Well, I think that Dr. Mitchell would have learned his lesson being a more experienced politician in the business. Grenada had its troubled past, trials and tribulations, and Grenada could have been far ahead. One of the things that we would have been struck by that devastating Ivan hurricane.
Oh, indeed.
And then I guess that Dr. Mitchell would have learned from what took place last year.
And then followed by Emily as well.
Yes, so many countries have been affected. So it is a time for the people of the nation to steer one particular course. And it relates to having that mindset to develop their country further. I remember before the one-time Prime Minister Eric Gary died, he mentioned the fact that people in Grenada must be united in their approach to have the country further develop. And we are seeing this happening today.
Again.
The Prime Minister. They say what goes around comes
around. And you speak about the future and ensuring that we have a sustainable future. What else can we do but lay the groundwork now for the future? This is the time. There's no other time but the present time. There is something that I often hear the Prime Minister speak about, is that fiscal framework and the discipline that is required. And a number of initiatives have taken place within the Ministry of Finance as it relates to state-owned boards and so on, as it relates to having that discipline, which will cut back on excessive spending and ensure that you operate within a protocol that is proper and transparent and so on. And here we talk about that discipline in order for us to keep our economy intact, in order for us to decrease on things like unemployment, and see the economy grow. We must be disciplined. And this is something he keeps speaking of, not only as the Minister of Finance, but as the Prime Minister of this country, continues to put that call out there for persons who are involved in running the state to have that kind of discipline.
I remember in his earlier stint there, taking office in 2013, one of the more important factors that drove the situation there was trying to get rid of wastage and having the public servants in particular getting to understand the need to cut back on wastage. And that did help a lot when you looked at the figures coming through from the Ministry of Finance. I think that Mr. Kenny Lal Singh was the man who was put in charge of ensuring that he deals with that situation there. Technologies, emerging technologies, and here in the speech we see the throne speeches directing young people to involve more deeply into the business of technology,
Science, technology.
drive in the various sectors, especially when it comes to manufacturing. I can tell you that the wizards in the truth set, they up by me 2 weeks, one point. Oh boy, he's working with so many companies now, and the freshman from the university.
And you have to recognize too that once you deal with technology, you're not limited to your own environment, because you can do so much and earn across the globe. You know, once you have the skills, knowledge, the opportunities are there, you have to respond to get into that area of science, not just only for you job on the local market, because there are opportunities internationally to grasp at as well. In speaking about education and the reform of education, I think it is so crucial at this time, especially when we start to talk about oil, we start to talk about technology. It tells us that we have to broaden that scope and include other disciplines into our educational system. And this certainly is refreshing to hear this morning, that that is going to be a continued process. It has already started, of the government, to ensure that the young people, when they leave schools, there are opportunities for them, whether it is from a skilled area that they can engage in, technology, science.
In that sector, there's going to be a lot of work. And you talk about skills. I remember being in Trinidad, petroleum engineering under Dr. Eric Williams, because he had these foreign companies into the exploration business. And he sent his people off on scholarships to the university. The university was right there. Geology, petroleum engineering, and you had the skill set. The persons with the skills, underwater welding, that was a highly paid job, you know. And I think that we have to move into direction, motivate the young people coming out of the secondary schools to see those areas as the lucrative areas on the job market. And there, who knows, later down the road in 5-10 years, they will be involved in the sector.
And it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. I mean, this is the initiation of the whole oil process. It's a start. And obviously, it's going to evolve into much bigger things once properly managed, and being cautious, as the speech referred to, cautious optimism. So there's optimism, but we must be cautious about the way we handle things. Selwyn, the other thing that I was... attracted me is the aspect of the social safety net and the plans that are there to put it in good stead. Some folks may have a problem with the fact that some of these things are going to go on hold for a month, but I think it is important to revamp it, revise it, ensure that the true vulnerable people in our society are the recipients of this program.
I like that. I think it is very thoughtful indeed, because a number of the people, our population is aging fast. And I think that a number of people would be looking for that assistance. And it is good that they can rethink the process and ensure, most of all, put in safeguards where necessary, so that the program can be recommended highly when it comes, because most of the areas there, when you look at the social safety nets, you get grant funding from abroad for these things, and you have to ensure that monies are well spent.
And one of the other welcoming things, which I may just finish on my points, is that of the housing project that is ongoing, and that there are so many more to come for persons in the low-income area that needs a home, a proper home for their families, or just, maybe a small couple or whatever. And that is so important and key to us as a nation, to ensure that our people have, and not only just a home, but a climate resilient home as well. And these projects are extremely important. A lot of people are going to be benefiting from them. There are a number of areas, St. Mark, St. Patrick, etc., St. Andrew, that homes are going to be built. And that is such a warm and welcoming thing for our people.
Well, this is where we round up our broadcast. We would have hoped that one of the technocrats from the floor, we could have had them up here for a chit chat for a while, but in circumstances like these, I don't think that the ordinary people, I should say, had the chance to get enough of the favorite politicians, their favorite MPs, and they are now milling around because they were invited by the constituency
representatives.
So they were invited by the representatives, and now they're milling around. And
but I think
our
that
location
GIS
here
team is
not
doing a few interviews. So obviously, folks would continue with that maybe tonight and so on. We can see the little action taking place down there. Where we're up on the top, and sometimes it's difficult to grab a person or two.
Upper loft.
But Selwyn, this has been very important to me as an individual, witnessing this occasion here this morning. I consider it as a very historical one for the government, the NNP administration, and particular too, I must say, for Dr. Mitchell, because he's been hinting of moving on,
leaving the scene.
And I being here, I am not saying it is. I would love to hope that it's not. May very well be one of his finales of Parliament in terms of an opening of the Parliament. It's the 10th Parliament, and what we understand from that, it is a start of a term, a 5-year term. Whether Doc will be there with us for the 5 years, or he will leave after 10 years. I cannot say that.
It's going to be a delicate political decision.
Political one. But I'm hopeful that he's going to be around for a long time. And I'll tell you why, Selwyn. He's made some great moves with young people in this nation, women in this nation. We see him putting them in the forefront in many ways, or on equal planes. And I think that he has put himself in a position where he has a responsibility to hold on to them and bring them to the future. So I'm not looking forward to him leaving us anytime soon.
I think this is one of the things that he would have more so very important about his legacy. I've seen it in many areas. As you know, I'm involved in football.
Right.
And I see the ageable senior players move out and the young players come in. And there's a period of time for that. What has happened here is that he has forced that period in because the youth were very reluctant.
Very reluctant.
Right.
But he said, let's move it.
Yes.
Let's keep moving.
And I think they answered him. They got that motivation from him, and there they are. And I think he would be very proud to see that he has left that behind. And later on, as I said, 10, 15 years down the road, when you look at the parliament and remember the mock youth parliament that he used to have, the mock debates, so the Grand Lake debates, you would see exactly. We would probably be in the position of advisors.
Yes. Well, Selwyn, I must say this. I'm sorry I'm not a youth at this time. But nevertheless, we have done our bit as well. And it's always good to know that I believe that young people, if they're given the opportunities, they will come forward.
And they will excel.
And excel. So kudos to them.
Well, this is where we round up our broadcast here for yet another day, the official ceremonial opening of the first session of the 10th Grenada Parliament and the Trade Center here, and not too sure if we will be back here in the Trade Center anytime soon. Who knows? But
Maybe for a different occasion.
but we'll be looking forward to the ceremonial opening of the new Parliament building, where we would see matters of the ship of state taking place from the 8th of June.
And I'm sure Selwyn probably would not be called York House.
Well, I'm not too sure who's going to give it that name.
It's a pleasure sitting here with you, Selwyn. It reminds me of way back in GBC, which is now GBN days, when we anchored the night radio news together. Thank you so much for sharing the time with me. I'm Sherma Wells.
My pleasure. Selwyn Noel and Sherma Wells. So this is where we round up our broadcast. It's so nice of you to be with us, and do join us again when we have another official ceremonial occasion. On behalf of all those who've been here, the operators behind the scenes, Shoma and Selwyn, saying bye from the Trade Center.